Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451 here with another episode of Weeb Warriors. But joining me this week is only Jordan. How you feeling, Jordan?
A lot better this week than I was last week.
And congratulations on passing through with what was it again?
My candidacy exam
Yeah,
for my
your candidacy
PhD
exam.
program.
I forgot to say that, but congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this week we have our regularly scheduled reviews. Jordan was a bit behind, so I'm pretty much going to be taking care of most of the reviews, and Jay won't be joining us this week because he's doing something else at the moment. You'll be seeing him on Comic Frontlines Media Madness when they talk about Cloak and Dagger, which I think they're already doing so. The shows this week, High School DxD Hero, Hinamatsuri, Comic Girls, and Megalobox. So, let's start with High School DxD Hero. I'll make this short and sweet and to the point. Basically, in this we'll connect to our Otaku Soapbox for the week, because I hate this particular situation when it does happen. Essentially, all this episode is Rias pretty much feeling like which a little bit more what happened last week with Rias's feelings. She feels like, what is Issei to me? Or how does Issei feel about me? And this has been messing her up for a while. And this is brought on when a press conference for the rating game between her and Cyborg is about to happen. Because the media in the underworld's basically wondering, oh, we now understand that you're basically Teria's basically your power up for Issei's you're a power up for the Red Dragon Emperor. So what? How does it work? How is the fight going to change? And Issei, trying to get a handle of the situation, basically makes it into a media circus and whips the reporters into a frenzy when he basically tries to say president, and they think they say, oh, he's gonna pleasure her breasts. That's pretty much what he's gonna do in public. And I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. And after all of that, we later come to a scene where they're getting ready for their school festival, which I almost forgot was another thing that's happening. So Revel is working with the occult research club with their haunted house / maid cafe, or the whole cacophony of whatever random bullshit that they're doing. And Revel's mother calls, basically checking in on her daughter, letting everyone know that her evil piece is free for anyone, alluding to things that will happen later if the series were to continue for another season. Issei basically saying to Revel's mother, I will protect her, you don't have to worry, and just basically coyly saying to Revel, hey, this man's good, marry him when you get the chance, essentially. And then after that call is done, Rias basically and flat out says to Issei, will you protect me? He says yes. Will you protect Aja? He also says yes. And then she asks him why. Why do all this? And why would you do it for me? And he says the president is the president. And basically wouldn't even have the gumption to say her name, which is the one thing that she wants, but she doesn't say it. And so she runs out of the room. Aja runs out of the room, basically calling him calling him a dirtbag. Everyone else in the room basically saying, God, you're awful. And Issei's like, what's going on? And Akeno, being the one that has to explain the situation, like, well, why haven't you noticed Rias trying to basically say, listen to her, and just care for her in that way. And he's like, I should probably go to her. And Akuna's like, no, don't do it. You're only going to make the problem worse. So Issei's left dumbfounded at the end of the episode, and I'm thinking to myself, God damn it. If this has to move the plot along, fine, but I hate this particular trope. I don't mind that it exists, because drama, but I just hate it. I really do. Because it just puts a monkey wrench when it doesn't need to be a monkey wrench.
Well, I mean, the situation was untenable to begin with. You can't be in as expansive of a harem as Issei is and then suddenly try to select the one. That, especially since they're inherently on unequal footing. But we can get into that later.
Definitely. But that's essentially what happened. But overall, I am eagerly anticipating what happens next because of this. But if it's going to hinder Issei in his fight with Sayaorg, I think it would be kind of interesting with the last-minute forgiveness like they always do, because this always happens with misunderstandings like this. So it's not that big of an issue, but I just hate it as a particular trope.
It could be worse. He could get a power-up because she forgives him, and then it will be really deep in the tropes.
Yep, that much is true. And then, okay, so next up is Comic Girls. I will also make this short and sweet and to the point. Basically, we follow... The first half of the episode basically follows Ruki basically pacing around the front of the dorm because it's winter. It's at that point, it's the 22nd. They're getting ready for a Christmas part. Well, they're... Koyomi and Chaos-chan were basically getting a Christmas tree ready because the matron brings out Christmas tree decorations, and we all find out that Rookie's having a hard time trying to feel love for her to get her manuscript done beforehand because she doesn't feel love at all. But it leads to funny situations like Koyomi trying to help her, that failing. Tsubasa trying to make her feel better, that wasn't helping. And then I forgot who did this because I watched the episode recently and now I'm forgetting about it. Someone suggested, I think it was Chaos-chan suggested that Ruki reads one of her fan letters. And just the love and adulation that she gets from that letter doesn't help her. And then we later soon discover that her birthday is on the 24th of December. And the girls give her presents. They bake her a cake. And Chaos-chan, being Chaos-chan, decides to buy Ruki an outfit based off an anime character Christmas attire. I'm like, oh sweet Jesus, Chaos-chan, you're a mess. Why would you do this? The other two girls buy
Chaos-chan is a perpetual mess.
Yes, because the other two girls buy her normal things, and of course Chaos-chan has to buy her something really niche and nerdy, which is kind of adorable. And then the second half of the episode's basically Chaos-chan tried to call her mother, which we also learned that Chaos-chan's mother looks a lot like her, but older. And maybe a little bit taller. Yeah, I know. It's one of those moments. Because her mother's in Hawaii because Chaos-chan forgot to call her because they have to leave the dorm for a while to visit family. And so everyone's trying to figure out what to do with Chaos-chan because she can't stay at the dorm. So Koyomi wanted to help, but she couldn't really have it. She couldn't let Chaos-chan stay. Ruki doesn't have a guest room. That won't help. And they turn to Tsubasa, and Tsubasa's like, no, I can't do this, no. But they they convinced her to take in Chaos-chan for the time being, and then we discover that Tsubasa has to put on airs because she's loaded, and has to basically lie to her family the fact that she draws manga. So you actually see her with longer hair and acting prim and proper. It's surreal. And it's funny because Kalshan, the perpetual mess that she is, has to put on fake airs too. Because there's a scene where Tsubasa is actually playing the piano, and Tsubasa's parents, because she lives in a big mansion, like her family lives in this big mansion, and every time you see an outside shot of this mansion, this epic music plays. It's insanity. And her family just adores her to death. Her parents are a little bit older, and she has an older brother. Tsubasa does. They say "my angel" to her all the time, and it's rather creepy how much they adore her. But Kaos-chan, basically, when she's dancing, she takes 2 candles and just does this perpetual motion dance, like an interpretive dance with just fire dancing. And and I'm thinking, oh sweet Jesus, why are you doing this? And all of this is, and then Tsubasa's mother basically leading the girls to their rooms, basically saying, I don't like the fact that you draw manga, Tsubasa, but I'm only letting this slide, okay? And it's terrifying when you actually see her mother act the way that she does. You feel scared for a moment. And at the end of the episode, it's basically Kaos-chan acting like a typical mess that she is, joining the other girls with their normal New Year's situation. We find out, well, at the end of the episode, basically Kaos-chan has the worst luck possible.
That's something we didn't know.
And the end of the episode's basically everyone's burning their old and rejected manuscripts just to roast sweet potatoes. And the end of the episode is basically a highlight for Kaos-chan because she gets the gumption to basically burn all of her rejected manuscripts, which is real growth for her. And I'm like, you know what? Good on you, Kaos-chan. Good on you. At least you have enough gumption to actually go through with it.
Is gumption just your favorite word for the day?
I actually have a lot of words that are my favorite words. And usually some of them involve the word fuck. But that's essentially it. Once you get to it, you can understand why I say all these things, Jordan. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode of Comic Girls. Now let's get to a show that you can actually talk about it a little, Hinamatsuri. Since you're currently catching up on it right now.
Yes, I am watching it as we speak on silent, but I am caught up to most of it. So this has mostly been the Hitomi episode with a little Anzu coming in at the end, but I can speak on the Hitomi portion as I speak and watch at the same time for the sake of Tony. Hitomi is made of magic. She is on her bad bitch shit today, and she's not to be stopped nor trifled with. I've never seen someone work so many jobs so well, so efficiently, even in anime. And I take that back. There is that spin-off anime from the Tenji Muya series. Those are different world pilots, a magical mecha. Either way, he's probably...
Oh, we're on Geminar.
There we go. Thank you. I've only watched it sub, so I don't know the English name.
Anyway. Yeah, so basically Hitomi is living on her own because her mother, she gets grilled by her mother, essentially. The fact that she's working at the bar and her mother's thinking that she's lying to her. Which
is fair.
It is very fair. And her mother looks incredibly young, too.
Yeah, actually, she's shorter than Hitomi is.
It's weird. Why does this have to exist in anime, too?
Yeah, no, I don't like that trope either. It's just like, it looks like a child, but it's an adult. All right, pedophiles, calm it down. Calm it down.
So anyway, Antako decided it would be a good idea to have Hitomi live in an apartment. Nita even basically used his real estate agency to find the cheapest apartment for Hitomi. Which, that's amusing.
Work, though.
Yeah, she works, because she's making connections. Antako actually throws a housewarming party for her. And Hitomi gets the idea of, like, my mom will finally save me. Someone will actually get me out of this stupid situation.
Nope.
But nope. Her mother basically sees all these men that she's working temp jobs, Hitomi's working for. They present their business cards, and she's like, now I understand that you're actually making these connections. You're working at the bar to make these connections. I am proud of you as your mother. You are doing great work. And Hitomi's like, what the fuck is happening?
It's like, this was not what we agreed to. This was not the plan.
This was never the plan. But Hitomi, ever the straight man in this comedy, like, cheers. And everyone's acting so happy. And then, of course, the one character that us grown men have to feel sorry for because her struggle is real, fucking Anzu. The folks that run the ramen shop that are taking care of her basically give her an allowance. And essentially, she wants to do something nice for them. So Hitomi tries to help her out, and then Sambu, Nita's subordinate, basically tries to help her out in this situation by making her bet on racehorses.
Which she wins. She
wins, but
then gives the money away to help the horse that was injured during the race.
And then she bets continuously because Sambu's like, yo, you can make even more money by betting on more races. And I'm like, oh no. No. I'm thinking to myself, why do you have to bring up my vices like this? Fucking Hinamatsu. Why, God? Why? And all in all, that episode's essentially leads up to that episode is Anzu wanting to do a nice thing for the people that are taking care of her. So I thought it was they're sweet, and it just made me think, oh God, Anzu, why are you making me feel happy for once for the sake of humanity? What is this?
Yeah, Anzu can't. I don't appreciate Anzu making me feel things.
It's like I don't mind when it's actually funny, because the Hitomi part made me laugh for all the right reasons. I mean, poor girl's trying to make a living here. Like, I can relate to you. This is funny to me. And then this fucking Anzu, it has to be the character that makes me feel like, oh, why are you making my heart melt, Anzu? Why does your struggle have to be so adorably strong? Why, God?
I don't know. I don't know, but I would like to know.
Yeah. But all in all, I think it was a great episode. It made me feel happy on the inside.
Yeah, I think it's a solid episode.
And then, well, pretty much you'll basically say the same thing about Tokyo Ghoul Re, like you've been doing for at least the past few weeks we bring it up.
Shut up, Tony. In typical fashion, I have not watched Tokyo Ghoul, not because it's a bad anime, but because my life is a mess at the moment. Or it was a mess and has recently become not a mess, or I have gathered control over my life. So next week, we will have a recap of all the episodes I have missed thus far and the latest episode. So we're going to have a nice long section dedicated to Tokyo Ghoul.
It'll be like a nice juicy steak.
You get away from me. You get away from me now.
But anyway, I think we should probably get to our big show for every week, like it always is.
Yes, and good googly moogly is Megalobox not pulling any punches in these last few episodes. They are calling for the jugular.
Oh yeah. With the fight that happened last week and then this week's review, sweet Jesus. And fun fact, Jordan, I don't know if you keep up with any reviews because I didn't read the review necessarily because I frequent Anime News Network. And they said that...
I do not know why.
Well, because I just like to read up on some bits of information because it amuses me. They said that this particular episode of Megalobox wasn't the best episode.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's a great episode. All of them are great. But I would argue that it is not the best episode thus far.
I would say that it's great, but it's not as great as the previous ones. I can agree with you there, Jordan.
Yeah, I agree. I think all of them are great. But the Aragaki fights and that arc, that's gonna be hard to top, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This Aragaki fight was by far the best.
The Pepe Iglesias fight versus Yuri was Yuri just essentially disrespecting this man.
But you got to admit, it was a nice touch for especially an anime that's subbed to actually have voice actors that actually spoke Spanish and English.
Oh, yeah. I was deeply surprised with the versatility of the voice actors. And their English wasn't half bad. And I don't say half bad because it was like light English, but no, it was actually pretty solid.
And I think it was an actual English voice actor that they got to do the voice for Glenn Burrows.
I would not be surprised. With the production quality of this anime, I would not be too deeply shocked if it was that when they needed to switch voices, they switched voice actors.
Because I think that, because it sounds like a voice actor I'm very familiar with, because I know his voice. And I'm trying to remember his name. I can't quite put my finger on it just yet. But I like what Glenn says in the press release before the fight, his fight with Joe, is like, why don't you put a collar on him? I'm like, oh, all right, Glenn. Those are fighting words. Because you cannot, you can't put a collar on this stray dog, because Joe is going to just ruin his day. But the rest of this episode, Nambu just being his usual self. For the love of God. And also, Sacho's story is deeply touching because his dad used to work for Shirato, and he pretty much died for it.
Yeah, which was dirty, but she did act to correct that situation. So it sort of makes you remember that Shirato Industries is not under the control of one individual and is only under her control as of recently. She seems to be a rather interesting, or at least redeemable, person in some aspect, who's interested in sort of the idealized version of her grandfather's vision, although he didn't seem to obey it too strongly his damn self. One thing I will comment about is that while watching this episode, I read the comment on Crunchyroll I'm sure that if anyone who's watching it on there, then they read the comments, they have seen it too, about how Yuri is delusional about the equality of megaloboxing. And while I agree with the commenter that the sport itself has a high barrier to entry and there are certain advantages that can be given gear, I do agree with Yuri's sentiment that in the ring, in the fight, all men are equal. It's me versus you, mano a mano, fist to fist. That's sort of the nature of boxing, and that's why it's still so interesting today. Gear adds a different element to it in the simple fact that it adds this extra layer to the combat that's beyond just simple man and muscle. But you could argue that that inequality has always existed. I mean, just look at Rocky, right? Like Drago had some very sophisticated equipment when he was training to fight against Rocky Balboa, and Rocky Balboa is out here punching meat in a damn freezer.
Very true. And I also, even though the fight was really short, we got to see Pepe's fighting style, which is nice. Well, even though it was very short for us to see, it was at least this was a guy who got a good hit on Yuri before he got knocked out.
I think that might just be Yuri's thing. Like, he's almost like Bruce Lee. You hit me once, you get one hit.
That seems like a very fair comparison. Because Yuri seems to me like he's a very idealistic boxer. Even though he has a lot of power behind his punches, he wants to use it as a kind of a platform for his idealistic view on the sport. Like with the commenter that you brought up, even though it does seem a bit uneven, I do agree with your sentiment. I agree on his sentiment that everyone in the ring is equal because it's a one-on-one fight. And that conversation between him and Joe kind of solidified that ideal, at least for me, that I can't wait to see these two fight in the ring personally. Because that's going to be just a spectacular fight because they're building up to this fight. And in my honest opinion, they better deliver like they usually do when it comes to fights like this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fight. It's hard to imagine how the Yuri fight will live up to this, considering that we have to watch him fight Burroughs in episode 11, and we only get one fight. So there's not going to be any build up to this Yuri fight beyond what has already existed. But
true, yeah. But
I think we're going to get, honestly, I would, if I were them, what I would do is I'd actually set it up so that the Burroughs fight does not take the whole next episode, and we can get a few minutes of setup. And go into episode 12 with a whole 20 minutes of full-on fighting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is either going to be this is a 13 episode series, right?
I thought it was 12, but it could be 13. That's not too uncommon. I'm not totally sure on the run.
Yeah,
if you give me a ring, I will find it.
I will be surprised that, because we talk about this show so much, we should actually have a handle of how many episodes it's going to be.
It will air 13 episodes, so we might get to see a 1-episode Burroughs fight, 2 episodes of setup Yuri beatdown.
Oh, yeah.
Although I don't think he's going to be beating down.
Oh, yeah, but I can definitely tell that Burroughs is going to be a bit of a challenge for Joe. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight because with the situation with Nambu. Because let's talk about that for a bit. Fujimaki basically saying, I want you to fix this fight. I want you to basically throw in the towel. I don't want you to become the champion. You already set the goal and complete the goal that you actually wanted to make. So I want you to just basically do this for me and you're off the hook. And
but it looks like Gambu is about to go die, actually. He's about to go tell or allow our boy to fight and win, because that uppercut he's laying down on Burroughs in the opening, that ain't something you just walk away from. And if it is, Lord Jesus, uh,
Oh, I cannot wait to actually see the fight because the Burroughs fight, and I'm sure Nambu. I feel like Nambu redeemed himself in a lot of ways throughout the series, but it's going to be kind of hard for. It's kind of like a. I don't know. I can't imagine Joe continuing without Nambu's guidance. I know Sacha will help, but
it depends, right?
right, yeah.
I guess we'll see how it plays out.
But still, I really think that Nambu, being the kind of man that he is, he's gonna figure out a way to get himself out of dying.
I agree.
But you never know.
Yeah, it might be more impactful to let him die. Who was to say?
Yeah,
I would like him to live, but it would be odd for the gangster to just be like, we'll let bygones be bygones.
mm-hmm.
Nah, son, that's not what's about to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's like, yeah, you know what, you're off the hook. No, but anyway, still one of those better episodes of the series. And now let's get to the Otaku Soapbox. So this week's topic is tropes, in particular genres in anime that we don't like. And I've already alluded to this with the High School DxD Hero review. One of the things I don't like about the harem genre in particular is misunderstandings that lead to everyone just moping around. And this also works for romance in particular as well. I don't like it because it just... Sometimes when it's invoked, it feels forced in the story.
Well, I mean, the whole story seems forced depending on what you're talking about, but I agree with you.
Yeah, because with this particular situation, it feels like to me it only is creating drama for the sake of moving the plot along. I mean, it's a fair thing to go by because it was building up to that moment, but still, I just don't like the trope in general when it's used in that way because it just feels dirty, or a very dirty-handed tactic to use. At least in my opinion.
True.
And then there's a trope. And here's because I told Jay about this. I am a very odd person, if we don't know this already.
I am aware. I feel like everyone that watches these videos is also aware.
Yeah, so a little bit about my family history. My father, being a bit of a stick in the mud that he is, but still a very nice guy, he doesn't like sad endings. And very much like my father, I have a very odd thing when I'm watching something. I don't like intense drama. I don't like intense moments in dramas. Like when it comes to like moments where people are arguing, or when there's like I find that more like an argument's about to happen, or someone is making a big revelation. I'm like, nope, stop for a minute. Let me collect myself because I can't handle it at the moment. It's those in the moment situations in dramas that I can't handle. And so it's one of those things I don't like. Well, I watch dramas for the sake. I'm like, yes, I'm really into this, and I'm into it so much, like, whoa, give me a moment to collect myself before I pretty much lose it.
I understand what you mean. I don't like, not with dramatic moments, but embarrassing ones. They make me cringe in real life, and I don't want to watch them anymore because I want to like spare them somehow. It's just like, oh no, stop, don't do it. You're doing it. Ooh.
And now we and the audience get to know, because we talked a little bit about this before we started the episode, but Jordan doesn't like the moe genre, and
Not at all.
now this will give him a platform for a lot of the reasons why he doesn't like the moe genre. Because me and Jay, well, more so me, were a bit curious about your reasons why, Jordan.
Okay, well, I can tell you right now, it's very simple, and there are very similar reasons to one another. But I suppose I'll not go for the obvious low-hanging fruit and try to articulate reasons more. Oftentimes, moe characters have character traits or character flaws, which we would traditionally find to be bothersome or outright obnoxious, if not for the fact that they are fixed to some sort of archetypal or prototypical cute character. They're also typically poorly characterized, and their stories revolve generally around them being cute and being put in cute situations. Um, I suppose that's nice in a heartwarming sense, but that's not particularly what I'm interested in when watching my anime. I mean, you can sprinkle it in. There are things that I guess Comic Girls is probably the closest thing, or I guess it is moe, but it doesn't bother me too much for the simple fact that I actually enjoy the characters that are within. I am aware of when they're doing moe moments, but I just simply ignore them, which is often. Beyond that, I don't find many other things that people find to be cute about moe characters to be cute. If anything, it just makes me think that there's a bunch of like borderline pedophiles out there in the world. For instance, why are they always little girls? Or they try to make older women look like little girls because it's just like she's tiny and a child, but she's legal, so it's not pedophilia. It's like no anime. This is what we're not doing. This is what we're not doing at all. And then, they like to put the girls in compromising situations. Them just being cute in their little outfits or whatever isn't enough. No, they need to be like in towels or putting themselves in like Kana from fucking
Dragon Maid.
Yeah, Dragon Maid. Why are you doing these things? What is this? Why are we getting these odd angled shots at her in her elementary school uniform? Stop this.
Don't do this to us.
That's what people want, apparently.
And then we lead to the thing we also kind of mentioned in the Hinamatsu review. Why is it that most anime moms look younger than their goddamn children?
I have no idea. I don't get that trope either.
Like,
to establish some degree of continuity into the world, like, yeah, you know, adults look like kids, kids look like adults. We're gonna pervert everything you think is right and wrong about the universe.
Because there's a few anime that I can point this out. Masamune Kun's Revenge. That his mom, the protagonist's mom, fucking looks like a child. My wife is the student council president, which that show is fucking crazy. The main love interest's mother looks like a goddamn child. And a few other shows that I could probably name off the top of my head, but I don't remember right now. Some of them look like children. I'm like, why are you making me... Don't do this to me. Why, God? Like, I know sometimes a mom can act rather childish, but they're adults because they have whimsical personalities, but I don't need anime mothers to actually look like children. This needs to stop, please. You're getting all the wires crossed. And I think there's another trope that I just can't stand currently in the anime genre. And it's this particular trope that mostly is in like a lot of and I don't like this particular trope, and Jay mentioned it to me with tropes that he didn't like. Well, since he's not here, I'll explain our shared dislike for this trope with particularly shonen anime when we watch it. The power of friendship bonus.
Not the power of friendship. Tony, you don't believe in the power of friendship?
Oh, I believe in the power of friendship, but it's an overused trope, my friend.
Yes. But also, would it really be shonen if it didn't touch on that? I'd argue, yeah, no, we could probably get away with it. Yeah.
Okay. That's a very fair point, but Jay basically says, you know, it's kind of annoying that it's out there most of the time, that we have to see it in a lot of shonen.
Yeah, I suppose, but the inverse is that shonen protagonists, as is shown by Bakugo's like characterization of a typical shonen anime character, are like borderline psychopaths with very few redeemable qualities. If not for the foil that exists within their friends, acquaintances, companions, whatnot, and the simple fact that they have people in their lives, they would just be villains with different sets of motives. Like,
oh, that's a very fair point.
it would be like watching Thanos and Darkseid fight over who gets the anti-life equation or some other crazy shit like that. Like, what would it fucking matter?
That's a very fair point to make. Some of the things that I like to point out with that trope in particular, I find it amusing with characters like Goku, for example, who, like, I want to fight strong opponents because that's what I want to do. And I find it hilarious that he gets these power-ups because, oh, you beat up my friend, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Yeah, but I mean, Goku is also one of those typical. I mean, Goku. How to put it? I feel like people give Goku a hard time because of his characterization, completely ignoring the simple fact that his anime was, I won't say seminal because that's not true, but one of the most popular works of that genre, well, ever, honestly.
How much is true?
So he's very simple, I guess, is the thing, right?
Yeah.
No one did like a deep psychological analysis about his motivations. He wants to fight strong opponents, so the writer gives him strong opponents, and then those strong opponents are evil, so they inevitably do some shit that's outside of the scope of what Goku originally signed up for. And he doesn't really learn any lessons because he was never out there looking for lessons in the first damn place.
And I'm going to bring this up because I'm watching this. There's another trope that I can't stand, and this mostly is for a lot of light novel adaptations. The overpowered protagonist.
Well, isn't that most protagonists?
Oh no. When it comes to light novels, especially with recently, they basically are created to be overpowered, and I find this trope rather annoying because you have one or two ways to go about this. A, you can go the Sword Art Online route, where basically you have somebody that is trying to craft a world with the worst ways possible and making your protagonists into such a god-tier character that you make them pull impossible bullshit out of their ass all the time.
Also, pause 1 second. There are a whole video series dedicated to why Sword Art Online is bullshit, but it has nothing to do with how powerful Kirito is and everything to do with how they use his power.
That much is true. Okay, fair point. Or you can make it as bland and boring as possible, like a lot of other, like, what was it? Fuck.
Smartphone?
Yes. That shit was fucking boring.
I mean, I watched the whole thing.
Oh, I did.
I hated myself every episode because I was just like, okay, we have some promise. He's a little strong, but you know, these characters might be. No, I was fucking wrong.
Nope.
Also, I knew I was fucked when this character was introduced. I was like, why is she doing this with her sentences?
I don't know why does this have to happen? Oh sweet Jesus! It's like you can either make him somewhat arrogant to the point where it's basically the you basically make the characters it's the the character is the writer's darling, or they are so bland and uninteresting that the show just tanks faster you can say tomorrow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But how to put it? I hated Smartphone, but I watched all of Death March, and I'm not sure how I feel about Death March as far as like quality of like the overall quality of anime, simply because it's not as if it was terrible. You had an OP main character, but he used his powers in a thoughtful way.
I think that's with that anime in particular, because I watched it too. I think the protagonist for that show is he's close to being a version of this particular trope, but he's not there yet. At least that's how I see it. He's basically using all of these skills that he's acquired over his journey in the anime to at least some effectiveness, but he's trying to be very humble about it. Or he's acknowledging the fact that he's in this game world that, like, because we get to see a lot of his, we are privy to his thoughts a lot, and he basically talks about his perspective on a lot of things, like, why are you doing this, with a lot of the girls that he comes across, which I find rather amusing. Because the thing about it that I just think is hilarious is he's very aware that spells are used against him. And he just builds up resistances to a lot of it. And admittedly, trying to teach to anthropomorphize little girls how to read is actually quite hilarious in its own right. I mean, I'm not trying to dig myself into a bit of a grave here, because the moments when he's trying to teach the girls how to say, like, goat or chicken or whatever, using those cards.
I mean, not everything was great, right?
Right.
A lot of people get easily find it boring, just sort of like a log horizon.
Oh, okay.
It's a great premise. They try to approach it with some level of intellect and attention to detail, but sometimes they get bogged down in the minutia of it, and no one really cares, right?
Right, and a lot of things that, with some tropes, we can point out the things that we just can't stand in particular genres, but overall, it doesn't completely hinder our experiences within those genres. I mean, you wouldn't automatically drop a show if it had all the trope, like, if you wouldn't drop a show automatically if it had one or two tropes that you didn't like, right, Jordan? I sense a bit of hesitation there.
Well, I would love to say no, but it really just depends on what it is. I drop edgy stuff all the time. It's just like, all right, I can't.
Like, that's like there's
like, if you're being edgy for like the sake of it, and it's just like, ooh, no. Like Vampire Line. Why are y'all starting off? Why are y'all opening up with rapist vampires? What is this? We got 2 whole rapes in the first episode. I was like, wow.
Huh? That's the thing that happened.
Yeah, no.
Or my normal thing when I drop a show is basically when I find if either I get into the premise a little bit and I just don't watch it anymore because something about it just bored me. It's usually like at least 1 or 2 tropes that I just can't stand that I haven't mentioned at this present moment. Or I just find it rather lazy. But with all things considered, I think I wouldn't drop a show outright because it has one or two tropes that I just can't stand. Like, even though I am a huge watcher of the harem genre, and even though I hate the fact that they use very wheat toasty, like white, like kind of white bread, very bland and very uninteresting protagonists a lot of the time, I can understand the inherent market value of having a character like that in a harem anime as the protagonist, because you could put yourself in his shoes. But for me as a person, I can't stand the fact that they are so bland, if you get what I'm trying to say here. I understand that the need for the type of character to exist is just, I can't really tolerate it all the time. Like, no, this is becoming a waste of my time. Like, right when the harem protagonist is kind of weak and doesn't show too much interest, like, yep, it's going to be one of those again. All right, chalk that down to the list. Like, when I watched Love Tyrant, it's one of those kind of average harem shows. At least Seiji, as a protagonist, put some effort, and he wasn't completely bland and boring, even though the girl that he caught his eye at first was a crazy yandere archetype that had a thing for, what was the type of knives that... it's the type of knife that's used by, fuck. It will come to me later, probably after we do this episode, I think.
I mean, I can't wait. Have I seen this? Yes, I have seen this.
The yandere chick with that show, she has red hair.
Kukuris.
Kukuris. There we go. Thank you.
Although I'm sure that I pronounced that incorrectly. But either way.
But still, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, but when he actually kisses that particular character on his own accord, it's like, okay, you're redeemable in a lot of ways because you do a lot of things that most harem protagonists wouldn't do. Or unless, because I don't mind this trope because sometimes it's rather amusing, but the overly perverted harem protagonist archetype, that trope, I find it kind of hilarious. Because these poor bastards get themselves into situations that sometimes they have no control over. Like the protagonist of Heaven's Lost Property. He's one of my favorite characters because even though he wants peace and quiet, he's an outright pervert. And a lot of the situations he gets in, and the reason why he gets the shit kicked out of him is because of all the situations that he gets himself into. I find that amusing, but all in all, I think we can end this episode here, since I feel like, well, even though Jordan contributed some, it was mostly me just prattling on. I think next week will be our normal schedule where we can actually get caught up on all of our shows. Life for all of us has been rather hectic, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree, Jordan?
Yes, I would agree.
So you can usually find me on, well, here, Jordan, he's pretty much the same thing. Still, congratulations on your candidacy exam again, Jordan.
Thank you.
And I think we will end things here. This has been Serpentine51, aka Tony. And we will see you next week with another episode of Weeb Warriors. Until then, see you later.